Do you ever find yourself freezing when you're trying to make a decision? Well, what if your indecision isn't actually confusion? What if it's your body slamming on the brakes until you literally can't move in order to protect you? My name's Elyssa Smith. I'm a trauma informed executive coach. And on today's episode of the Unlock Your Blocks podcast, we are uncovering how the freeze response disguises itself as overthinking in high achieving women and how to thaw that response so that your next steps will feel so much more doable for you again. So, looking at where this response starts, you have to understand this is not just a bad habit. This is not just something that comes on in adulthood. This is something that started probably when you were little, before you were actually reasoning things out. So, if you learned that being small, being still, being quiet would get you safety during chaos or conflict or high emotional intensity, you would have learned to just pause. Whenever things feel too much or whenever you feel overwhelmed, you would have a freeze response. And that it makes a lot of sense, right? So for a little kid, if she is learning how to navigate in her family of origin and she sees, okay, mom and dad are, fighting or something's happening, I need to help control this because if between the ages of 0 and 10, little kids, the whole world revolves around them. They're very egocentric. And it's actually really helpful for us to survive that way because what happens is that we get this understanding that we either need to accept that we will never be able to change the situation, the people around us, how many of our needs get met, which would cause us basically to fail to thrive. So that's not really an option to accept it. So we have to believe that we have agency. Even if we can't control the situation, your survival brain will do everything it can to heavily influence the outcomes so that you can get your needs met. And if a freeze response serves that purpose, it will ingrain a freeze response in you for any type of stress that you feel, particularly for overwhelm and overthinking. So if you learned somehow that making the wrong choice, I'm doing air quotes, like the wrong choice would get you punished or you would have disappointment or rejection, then your brain would have said, like, nope, it's actually safer to freeze. We need to avoid risk. We can't afford a loss like that. We can't afford consequences. We can't afford to be told that we are less than as a result of making the wrong choice. So we're going to freeze instead. So anytime that choices come around, then the pattern is going to become more and more ingrained in the neural pathways of the brain that when there are a lot of decisions or a big decision, we freeze. We don't have clarity. When you're in that survival mode response too, you don't have access to your higher level executive functions in those moments. So when you go into the survival response, the freeze response is very accessible. Rational thinking and actually choosing a different path, very inaccessible in those moments of survival mode. Another thing that you might have experienced is emotional overload as a little girl. So, when you were the responsible daughter, when you were the good daughter, you were the perfect daughter, or maybe you were expected to be perfect, then your body learned to freeze instead of act as a way to prevent overwhelm. Maybe you were adultified or parentified as a child. And when that happens to us, especially if you're that oldest daughters, let's all raise our hands, especially, or if you acted like the oldest daughter, because I have a lot of clients who are not the oldest daughter who had some of those hero child characteristics, right? So if you were that girl in your family and you started to get overwhelmed, your survival system is going to help shut you down so that you don't have all the input coming at you or all the needs or all the adult responsibilities coming at you because little brains just can't cope with that very well. We do adapt really well. Thank God. We have these survival systems, we have survival mode. It gets us through. But what got us through those things in childhood is not what's going to get us to our next level of success as a high performing adult. So if you learned that at the first sign of emotional overwhelm, we freeze, we pause, we don't act, then as an adult, that's going to be really hard if you're trying to run a business or run a company or advance your career or have good relationships in your life. It's really challenging. Or like, God forbid, take care of yourself, right? Eat well, work out. There are so many responsibilities and adulting decisions that we have to do. And if your little child response, if your survival mode is freeze, you're not going to get very far before you get derailed. So You also may have the freeze default response when there are too many expectations or specifically decisions to make. So, if there's again this theme of too much responsibility, your inner little girl still thinks she's the one that's in charge. She thinks that she's supposed to have it all figured out, that she's supposed to be able to know how to navigate everything. And when she doesn't, the brakes go on and she's like, I can't do it. And so we're just not going to move until it feels safer. So, as an adult, you might notice some of these things that are affecting you if this freeze response is coming up with indecision, as it's marauding as indecision or like overthinking or decision fatigue. Now, those are all real things. Overthinking and decision fatigue, real stuff. However, those are not always a trauma response, whereas the freeze response is always some sort of a survival mode response, typically due to big T, little t, even tiny t trauma, little emotional needs going unmet during childhood. You will have some of this in adulthood that maybe you notice that you just constantly are shaming yourself a little bit, like, "Ugh, you're just overthinking," but you're in a shutdown state where action feels impossible. So I have clients that come to me and they're like, I don't know why, but I can't like make this call to my insurance company to get reimbursed for therapy, or I can't make this one call to my child's school to make an order for the next thing that they need. So you might find that there's a freeze response of some sort that is stopping you from doing even small things because your brain is stuck in this freeze mode. The longer you stay frozen, the more shame and pressure you're probably putting on yourself. You might notice that you're getting into a deeper freeze the more that you think about it. I literally just got off the phone with someone and it's not even a client, it's someone I'm writing an article for. And we were talking about this concept. She's like, man, literally, if I would just take the amount of time I worried about this thing to just go do the thing, the thing would be done. But she's like, I don't know why I keep procrastinating. So we got in a conversation about how the freeze response marauds as overthinking, being unable to make a decision, being indecisive, procrastinating, whatever those things are. The longer you're there, the harder we are on ourselves and the more we ruminate over it. If you've ever noticed that about yourself, you might also find that as an adult, you're avoiding decisions, delaying your progress, maybe even staying in situations or relationships or jobs that don't serve you anymore because choosing something different feels like a threat to your system and it just won't let you choose something different. In all of these cases, playing small, staying smaller, staying littler feels safer. I even have a client who can remember holding her breath in a closet when her parents were fighting. So when chaos presented itself, she would just literally and figuratively and literally freeze. She would just be hiding, holding her breath, hoping for it to stop, and somehow thinking maybe she could affect it that way. So the adult version of that is that we might bury our heads in the sand a little with going and doing the laundry or procrastination of whatever it looks like, whatever our particular brand is, in order to avoid making the decision. And it's not because we can't just choose the choice. It's because freeze feels safer to our bodies in that moment. This keeps your growth goals on a pause and it causes you to not be able to evolve to the next level, even when you desperately and deeply want to change and you have done the inner work to be aware of what's going on. Wanting to change is not enough. So, here are some ways that you can break this habit. It's not exactly a habit, this coping mechanism, and you can interrupt the pattern so that you can start moving in a beautiful, more free way. Okay. So when you notice that you're feeling frozen, I want you to take the shift of your focus off of the decision that you're trying to make or off of the task that you're trying to force yourself to do. And I want you to get into your body. Think about your body. What are you feeling in your body in that freeze response? Because that will start automatically to thaw the freeze. Your brain is on autopilot. Your body's on autopilot when you are in the freeze response, when you're feeling indecisive. I don't know. Should I do this or should I do this? I have 20 minutes of free time, but then you spend the whole 20 minutes guessing, oh, should I take a shower? Should I wash the dishes? Should I watch my favorite show? Should I listen to a podcast? What should I do with this 20 minutes? And then the 20 minutes is gone, right? So what is that indecision doing? And where is it coming from? See when you can notice it. Then pay attention to your body. What do you feel in your body when you feel paralyzed in the decision making? So then you actually move your body and get your body unstuck. I will preach this all the time, everywhere, all the time. To get your body going, your vagus nerve needs physical signs of safety for your body, you nurturing your body to know that it's safe to take up space. So whether you are reaching up to the ceiling and stretching your arms up to the sky and taking a nice big deep breath, whether you are, getting up and running up and down the stairs a couple of times just to kind of get your muscles going, engage your body because that will help to thaw this freeze response. And then I want you to think about once you've moved your body, once you've focused on what you're experiencing in your body with this freeze and indecision, I want you to think about what is the smallest step, maybe the smallest decision that feels possible. So if you have 18,000 things to decide, like, got to figure out what I'm doing for work and what we need to eat for dinner and whether or not I should if you have your own business and you need to scale your ads, on Facebook or something, like, oh, I got to figure out the first thing to do there. Whatever doesn't feel like a micropile. Do you know what a micropile is? A micropile is a seemingly small decision that actually has several decisions inside of it. So if you think about, that little I don't know, but let's say there's like a little, I'm just telling on myself here, okay? The little pile of junk on the kitchen counter that is sort of like loosely organized in a basket, but there's just a lot of stuff in there that doesn't really go there. If I say, okay, I'm going to go and clean out that basket, that's a micro pile because there are like 17 different decisions that have to be made there. So you want to find a single decision. You want to find the smallest possible decision. Maybe there is a piece of paper on the counter that goes somewhere else that your brain is like, we can't do it because if we do that, we have to do the whole thing. No, just do the one thing. Make the one small decision that feels doable. Get yourself some momentum going, okay? And then watch to see where your inner critic and where the shame are at work on you because survival mode doesn't come alone. When we're little and we get the freeze response, when we get overwhelmed, if you don't do the thing that your brain thinks is the right thing to do in order to get most of your needs met, it will shame you into it'll coerce you into doing the thing that it wants you to do. So what is that? What am I trying to think of? Oh, it'll shame you into aligning with that, right? It'll shame you into behavior that does what it thinks is going to give you the best chance to survive and get all your needs met. So not only are you not making the decision, but you also have a voice telling you that you're dumb for not making the decision, okay? This is like this pattern that high achieving women find ourselves in because your survival mode is working almost even against itself. So we have to step outside of that by working with the body and working with the nervous system instead of working against it or trying to talk it out of its survival response. If you are interested in doing some more of this work in a really subtle, gentle, super kind way for your body, you can download my 5 free nervous system hacks that you can do at your desk. It's a PDF guide that I created to make it really easy to start thawing out your nervous system and getting you to move in a different direction from the fight, flight, freeze, fawn modes and to help to start to heal these brain pathways that have been implemented since you were little to help you because now you're ready for your next level. Now you're ready to thaw. Now you're ready to be decisive when it really counts. Now you're ready for the next level of ease, joy, taking up space, girl, like just taking up your space. And first, we have to communicate safety to your beautiful nervous system. So I hope you'll download that and it will walk you through exactly what to do. It's super simple, really quick and easy. And I hope that really helps. I will see you here next time. And until then, take such good care of yourself.